All right, well, we continue to follow the story of Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson, two very popular, very highly recognized news anchors for their respective cable news networks, Fox News and CNN. Don Lemon, of course, was the co-anchor of CNN This Morning, and Tucker Carlson hosting the primetime 8 p.m. hour on Fox News, Tucker Carlson Tonight. Both of them have been let go after both of the two respective media outlets came out and announced that they have parted ways with their respective journalists. Joining me now to discuss some of the latest is Brian Steinberg, senior TV editor at Variety. Thanks so much for making the time.
Absolutely.
So let's just start out with how much of a surprise this perhaps was to some people, particularly with Tucker Carlson, given that it comes so soon after the settlement was reached between Fox News and Dominion Voting Systems. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's quite a surprise. I think everyone was blindsided by it. I do think it comes from the highest levels of Fox Corporation. This wouldn't have been done without a nod from Rupert Murdoch or Lachlan Murdoch. So I think this is the kind of thing. Look, this is Fox's most popular primetime anchor, one of his most watched personalities, one that brings in a lot of viewership every night, and that helps drive Fox's cable subscriptions and programming fees. So to have this happen would not happen without a very senior executive giving the nod.
And when you look at Don Lemon in particular, I mean, a lot of people talking about the comment that he made towards Nikki Haley, the GOP presidential hopeful in 2024, talking about the two of them are kind of going back and forth about what should be considered someone's prime in terms of their age. So there was that, and then I guess some people were contributing some other factors to it as well. Do you see any reason that perhaps might stand out as to why someone like Don Lemon, someone who's been at CNN for, as he pointed out, 17 years, might be let go from there?
Well, I think Don was moving to an area or an arena that isn't his normal strong suit. He was good at solo anchoring and working on a late night, more opinionated program. This is the morning is a very different time. It's a time when people are just getting up, very sensitive, a little more tender. They want someone who can help wake them up, tell them what's going on in the news, not it's like throwing cold water on somebody at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't think Don. This is Don's favorite place, and I think there were some problems with chemistry with his two other co-anchors. CNN, look, as far as CNN threw these people into the same table without really knowing what was going to happen, and they're finding out. I understand behind the scenes there's some business concerns about booking people, about selling advertising for the show. These are larger concerns that require big moves very quickly.
And when you look at perhaps the direction that this could take an outlet like Fox News, for example, with Tucker Carlson, someone who has been very outspoken, who has been quite controversial, perhaps well liked amongst the Fox News viewers, but, given his role in the Dominion case that was with Fox News, he was kind of at the center of that. He was one of the anchors who might have been called to testify on the record if it had advanced to a trial. I mean, he was, some would argue, maybe a liability for Fox News in some respects, maybe not for their ratings, but in terms of, their public reputation. Do you think that it might change the direction for them, or perhaps in the Don Lemon example with CNN?
Well, I think that last week Dan Bongino, a weekend host at Fox News, was parted ways. Another kind of a more rightward, more hard right leaning personality. Tucker's a similar thing. I do think there's no one at Fox going to say this out loud, but I have to think that paying out $780 million plus to a voting technology company that sued you for defamation make sure you grab your wallet a little more tightly. And I think when you have personalities who are pushing things that aren't always hard down the middle true, you take pause. This incident may have given the Murdochs reason to sit down and think, where are we going? What are we doing? Let's figure out what to do with this next. Let's try and maybe Tucker is not the person that they need on the air right now.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Brian Steinberg, senior television editor at Variety. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Joining me now to discuss some of the day's news, given that Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon, two prominent news anchors, Don Lemon, co-anchor of CNN This Morning, one of the most watched morning newscasts in the entirety of the United States, and Tucker Carlson, of course, a primetime anchor on Fox News. Both of them have been let go. Perhaps some of the details of both of those two instances have not been made super clear as of right now. Joining me now to discuss some of the latest on that is Colby Hall, media analyst. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate coming on your show.
Of course. Let's just start out with the kind of the nature of this. First of all, the fact that two very prominent news anchors were let go or parted ways. The company did, as both CNN and Fox News described it. What do you make of the situation as a whole?
Well, it's a pretty shocking day in the world of cable news because two of the most prominent voices and faces on two competing networks were each like suddenly let go within an hour of one another. And it seemed as though neither really were prepared for this. Tucker Carlson, I think, is a slightly bigger deal because he gets bigger ratings. And my reporting tells me that it was decided that he was going to be let go Friday night in a conversation with the Fox Corp CEO and Fox News CEO, and that he learned like roughly 10:15 this morning, about 10 minutes before their press release went out. Now, Don Lemon had been in a tougher situation with CNN. He had moved from prime time to mornings. He had gotten a little bit of hot water for saying some things about women that didn't go over very well. And I think he was on some thin ice. It wasn't clear that CNN's future, they have a new CEO, new management, that CNN's future vision and Don Lemon were a good fit. I like Don. I know him pretty well, and he's really very talented. But I don't think I think he'll land on his feet. Yeah, so all of that happened today. It was a bad day to be a prominent cable news host.
And when you look at the optics of both of the two respective situations, obviously Don Lemon, for example, he made the comment recently about 2024 GOP hopeful Nikki Haley. A lot of people, kind of making the connection between that. And then, of course, Tucker Carlson, who was in many respects kind of at the heart of the lawsuit and the case between Dominion Voting Systems and Fox News. He was one of the people who was perhaps going to testify on the record about the situation if the case had advanced to a trial. What do you make of the two aspects of the situation, and given some of the things that have been happening that potentially could have led to both of their two departures from their news and networks?
Well, I'll take them one at a time. You're right. Don basically said, pushing back on Nikki Haley, that women are past their prime after 40. I think he was a bit confused about sort of the nature of gestation, but I know a lot of women who are past the age of 40 who quite liked Don Lemon and agreed with him, but were really outraged by that comment. And when you launch a new TV show, especially a morning show, that's a significant chunk of your viewers that you need. It's very hard to draw viewers, especially in mornings, because people's TV viewing are so habitualized. But to stick a dagger into the heart of a target section of the viewer was very difficult for him to come back from. And I think ultimately was really what this was all about and why he was let go. Tucker Carlson is an interesting figure because he when he replaced Bill O'Reilly, he was sort of kind of a straight, establishment GOP, and his ratings weren't great. And then he pivoted to a more extreme conspiracy-based, sort of more far-right bit of programming, and he drew a lot of younger viewers. Fox News always has a ton more viewers than the others, but many of them are older. And so he was, made the company more money because advertisers make money off of a younger demographic. Anywho, the thing with Tucker Carlson is that he sort of loved to look at like the list of things that he wasn't supposed to talk about and then do segments about that. He was kind of a nihilist in that regard. And we even saw it last month during the Dominion defamation lawsuit, which was really about the importance of fact-based journalism. During that, he did this whole thing, got a ton of attention and controversy surrounding the January 6th video. And he basically alleged that he had proof that it wasn't nearly as bad. And it was the wrong message, the wrong coverage to be doing at a time when the network was under attack for how honest they were. So I think Tucker kind of lost some allies at the network. And then a lot of stuff, just to sum this up, there was a lot of redacted information that we don't know about that came from Tucker Carlson's phone. I suspect that in those redacted comments, there was more damning details about, I don't know, I'm speculating here, but toxic work environment and other things. And if Tucker had lost his allies and was sort of like isolated at Fox News because of that, then all that stuff that came out was a perfect pretext for the network execs to say, you know what, it's time to part ways. And here we are.
And just before we conclude, on kind of a programming aspect of things, this will leave one of the arguably largest places in morning news open, and one of the largest places and spots in evening prime time news open. What are you expecting on that front end? And are there any people perhaps at either of those two respective news networks who perhaps have, a higher chance than others at replacing them? And what does it say? Do you think that these two networks may use it as an opportunity to try and, part ways with the messaging that those two hosts were using? Speak a bit about that.
I think that there's a bit of a pendulum shift away from controversial opinion programming, particularly with Tucker Carlson. I think that there's one of the reactions from the Dominion settlement was perhaps a desire for Fox in particular to go back. And I think Don represented at CNN a different era that was more kind of Trump versus other. And Don really relished that and did well pushing back, but angered a lot of people because he made it so sort of entertaining and personal, but less about news. I'm not sure about the CNN morning show. I suspect there are two stars that are there. Poppy Harlow and Caitlin Collins will hold down the fort. They'll do a good job. Fox News viewers are so loyal that Wyatt, you could host at 8 o'clock on Fox News and you would get really good ratings. I think the people just leave Fox on for a long period of time. So Tucker definitely has a following, and it will take a hit, but it won't be that big of a hit because it's interchangeable parts and the network is bigger than its stars. And I think ultimately that's really what was here, is that Fox News felt that Tucker was getting too big for his britches and they're going to try someone else.
Okay, media analyst Colby Hall, thanks so much for making the time. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here, Wyatt. Thanks so much.
Let's discuss some of the day's news, including President Joe Biden, who is expected to announce his re-election bid from the White House at some point this week. Also, CNN getting rid of Don Lemon, Fox News getting rid of Tucker Carlson. A lot to get to. Let's bring in Democratic strategist Joel Rubin and Republican strategist John Thomas. Thanks so much to the both of you for making the time.
Good to be with you.
Joel, let me begin with you. Obviously, on the aspect of the removal of Don Lemon from the airwaves of CNN and Tucker Carlson from the airwaves of Fox News, two very prominent news anchors at their respective news organizations. What do you make of the fact that, first of all, both of them were removed in the same day? And what do you think their removals, their departures from their respective news outlets says about potentially the future of cable news?
So today is a great day, Wyatt, for American democracy. I'll tell you, Tucker Carlson did more to destroy the public discourse than any single media figure in my lifetime. And he was a fraud. I went on his show once. They weren't happy that I was speaking honestly rather than playing to the crowd. Then I saw him not long after that at a dance recital in suburban Maryland, drinking a cappuccino, looking very comfortable in his preppy clothes. So, Tucker Carlson, his language is gutter language. He brought us into the gutter, and his dismissal, for whatever reason it is a good day for American democracy. Now, Don Lemon's dismissal, he probably deserved it too, quite frankly, in the way he trash talked women. But I don't think they were timed to be together. Maybe CNN got a little lucky that Tucker Carlson was a bigger story. But Tucker being gone is good day for America, and it's a good day for Fox too.
And John, specifically on the Tucker Carlson piece, a lot of people have been arguing that the role that Tucker Carlson potentially had played in the most recent lawsuit between Dominion Voting Systems and Fox News was in some way potentially a part of him being let go from Fox News. Do you think that and the lawsuit between Dominion and Fox News harmed the reputation of Fox News to such an extent that they wanted to get rid of Tucker Carlson? What do you think some of the factors were at play?
You know what? It's hard for me to speculate exactly until the facts come out. But broadly, first of all, anytime a leading commentator is fired, I think that's always a bad thing, because I'm in in favor of more speech, not less, even if you don't agree with that speech. So I'm sorry to see that go, Tucker go. I don't think it'll be the last time we've heard from Tucker. But the question is, was he fired because of the Dominion case? I'm not certain about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if after the Dominion case, corporate heads at Fox News were taking tighter controls of editorial and commentary within the network. And Tucker Carlson has been very open in years prior about his views on censorship. He hates it. He won't be censored, and he doesn't like to be told what to do, particularly when he was the #1 rated cable host on television. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a corporate mandate throughout the channel, not just with Tucker, but all other hosts, of certain editorial controls, and Tucker just got in a fight. And it was either management's way or Tucker's way, and management chose their way.
Can I add to that, though? And I think we'll probably find out exactly what went wrong. But I think anytime an employee drives a message that costs a company $800 million, that company has the right to say, you're not a good employee for us.
So then, John, I guess let me follow up with you on the point that Joel just made. A lot of people, specifically Democrats, even some Republicans to a certain degree, are frustrated with, the rhetoric that are coming from some of the Tucker Carlsons and Sean Hannity's of the cable news world. The fact that, and some of the commentary that they were giving as it relates to January 6th, as it relates to the 2020 election, claiming that it was in some way fraudulent, even though there wasn't really a lot of evidence to suggest that. I guess I'm just wondering, do you think that potentially played any sort of a role in it? And do you think that, Fox News maybe let them go out of a concern for journalistic integrity? I mean, what do you think was behind it?
No, I don't actually think that was it. I mean, if you look at like the Dominion case, for instance, the critiques from Dominion towards Fox News, of course, they wrapped up all the hosts and executives in that suit. But by and large, it was focused on other like Fox Business hosts like Lou Dobbs, Maria Bartiromo. Tucker Carlson really wasn't the center of Dominion. Tucker Carlson's been vocal on January 6th. The lawsuit has nothing to do with January 6th. Tucker has differed in his opinion on January 6th and management. So look, we'll know the truth, I'm sure, in a few days. But did Fox fire him to save their bottom line? Hard to say. The other thing we don't know is there have been rumors that Fox News and the Rupert Murdoch might be selling the Fox division, and perhaps they want to button up all potential entanglements, including hosts that don't want to play with management well.
Well, he also was being sued by his former executive producer for sexual harassment in the workplace. And I think that may start to percolate up as well. I just saw some news flashes that is something that was of deep concern. Remember, Bill O'Reilly cost him millions of dollars and got canned for having a harassment in the workplace. And looks like it may have happened again. Fox has had a persistent problem with that. And so that may also be part of this issue.
And Joel, I'll come back to you in just one sec, but I guess I want to ask, specifically as it relates to, to John, just as it relates to some of the text messages too, for example, that were unveiled of Tucker Carlson expressing, quite harsh feelings towards former President Trump. And then he would, go on the airwaves and talk about how the former president was, a victim. And he gave an interview, for example, recently Donald Trump did with Tucker Carlson, in which the two of them, were giving an interestingly, kind of friendly interview between the two of them. I guess I'm just wondering, do you think to any degree, perhaps that played any sort of a role? And I guess what kind of a role do you think someone like Tucker Carlson could potentially play post his, Tucker Carlson Tonight Show that's been on now for quite some time?
Yeah, well, it's no secret that management at Fox News is putting the Trumps and the Trump family on a blackout from being on Fox's air. And look, two things can be true. Tucker Carlson can both not like Donald Trump on a personal level, but also find ways to praise Trump in select instances. Just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean you can't interview him. I think that was actually totally appropriate. And perhaps management didn't appreciate that. I can't speak to that. The role going forward for Tucker, look, I can't underscore. First of all, nobody cares that Don Lemon was fired, although you never, poor Don, but like He ain't moving the
Right.
electorate. The cable news world, he didn't rate. It's not that big of a deal. in
And the
scheme
White
of
House
things.
kind of pushed him away too.
Exactly. Yeah. But Tucker's firing is seismic for the Republican
Mhm.
electorate. Wyatt,
Yes.
I can't underscore how impactful Tucker was in shaping the agenda of the Republican Party, both on the campaign trail and in Washington. With his voice potentially gone, the question is, does he ride off into the sunset and spend time with his family? Or does he use this as an opportunity? Some say run for president. I don't see that.
Huh.
But does he use this as an opportunity to really make his impact to help select the next Republican nominee? I think that impact could be much greater, quite frankly, after leaving Fox, because he's no longer constrained by what Fox management might want him to do or not do.
And Joel, I guess John kind of just touched on it, but to what extent does the issues with Fox News and Tucker Carlson outweigh the issues with Don Lemon and CNN? And, you know, as John pointed out, Tucker Carlson potentially plays a much bigger role in kind of the political discourse than someone like Don Lemon does.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with John. It's night and day. Don Lemon was the host. He was a host with strong opinions and views, but he didn't set the agenda for the Democratic Party by any stretch, nor for, frankly, most people. Tucker Carlson set the agenda for the Republican Party. The issues that are being promoted right now, for example, on the debt limit debate in the House, that's a Tucker Carlson idea. The whole concept of anti-immigration, while for years it percolated, he has really driven it into the mainstream of the Republican Party. He's really big into the Great Replacement theory, which is a deeply white supremacist concept. He's dabbled in anti-Semitism time and time again, singling out wealthy Jewish Americans and others, and played footsie with Viktor Orban and fawned over Vladimir Putin. And all of that now is mainstream Republican ideology. Not a Republican Party I saw when I worked on Capitol Hill alongside Republicans, and not when I went on Fox. Been on Fox probably 100 times. This is a different beast, and I think that his voice now, it's platformless, and we'll see where he comes out. But it's kind of like getting kicked off Twitter and going to Truth Social. It's just tiny.
Joel, I'm curious if I don't think this is going to be like when Bill O'Reilly got fired from Fox and then was relegated to a much smaller network where his voice his impact shrunk. I think Tucker is of such a magnitude that he has the ability to land wherever he lands. I mean, he could, in fact, this could be the demise of Fox News. I mean, I can't underscore the loyalty that his audience has to him, and they might just follow him wherever he goes.
I think this is a really interesting idea, right? So if you look back in the period after the election, before the insurrection, the Dominion case centered on that period. And that period was where Newsmax started to rise, and Fox decided to throw, a caution to the wind. Well, who knows? Maybe Newsmax is now calling Tucker Carlson, offering him quite a big package. And I agree with you in that way. But that time slot always was the king time slot, no matter who occupied it. And that's one thing not to take for granted. Those viewers, they may like Tucker now, they may love him now, but if Fox puts someone in that seat that's pretty entertaining, at a certain point, they may just stick around there. But I do want to say this one key thing. Tucker's intellectual capacity is significant. He has been a leader since the 90s in Republican politics and in conservative movement politics. That's not replaceable. You don't just find that overnight. You put some new hosts in that seat. They don't have the 20, 30-year track record of driving issues and ideas. And for that, him being gone, I'm thankful.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Democratic strategist Joel Rubin and Republican strategist John Thomas. Thanks so much for making the time. Really appreciate you both.
Thanks.
Thanks, Wyatt.